So, do all of these different types of bias have an actual effect on the public? Well, largely, whenever we talk about the effects on the public, we talk about two different aspects of media effects. The first one is a process called priming. And this is where an individual has consumed so much niche media that they are primed to think of an issue in a certain way. So, for example, if they have read a bunch of stories that have talked about the potential dangers of hydroxychloroquine, a drug that has been touted by some as beneficial to treating coronavirus, they might be primed to think of hydroxychloroquine as a positive drug for the pandemic that is going on currently. If somebody has read a lot of stories about the studies that have shown negative effects of hydroxychloroquine, they might be primed to think of hydroxychloroquine as overall a dangerous medication. Framing refers to the overall tone of a story. Now, if an individual utilizes multiple information resources and gets their information from a lot of different outlets, this can be minimized. But framing does have a very, very powerful effect. So, for example, if you have been consuming your media from a certain ideological tilt, you might be tempted to frame the current protests that are going on right now in summer of 2020 as an issue of police violence and the negative effects that police violence has had. If you have been looking at media sources from another ideological bent, you might be thinking of the current protests in terms of the looting and property destruction that comes along with it. And you might not really even be thinking about the police violence aspect of this whole incident. And so those are different ways that a current event can be framed that can affect an individual's view in terms of whether they think of the events as important, unimportant, positive, negative, and which actors in the stories they feel are positive or negative. And specific actual content in terms of the information and details, largely people don't actually retain information. They don't retain specifics. Largely what they walk away with from media coverage is a feeling or a sentiment about a specific, or rather about a general issue or a particular set of issues. However, repeated exposure to a certain message can be persuasive in terms of changing one's mind. So I've been hinting to you that people seek out information that they are already primed to agree with, but repeated exposure to a message that goes against what you already believe has been shown to be persuasive. The problem is, people don't often seek out information that does not align with their own previous worldview. So, revisiting the questions that I started off with, why do media outlets produce biased content and why do people consume it? Well, technology allows for targeting of niche audiences and it allows for built-in markets. People tend to watch and read things that they already agree with, wanting to insulate themselves in a blanket of their own worldview. And because of this, bias is both consistent with the profit motives of media outlets, as well as the political motives of media ownership. Not only can media executives make money or media outlets make money, but if those media outlets have a particular political worldview, then there's no reason for them to try to mitigate or neutralize that worldview because there's an audience out there waiting for it. And so that is where things stand right now. this idea or these notions of proliferation of media and more biased media content doesn't appear to be quelling anytime soon. But it's important to understand media bias, where it comes from, how it works, and to recognize it when you see it. That's all for this video. As always, if you have any further questions, you can email me.